I joined the Stones in May or June of '69, and so I hadn't earned enough money or done enough work on that level to have any kind of tax problems. But one of my most vivid memories is being flown there in our own private jet. I thought, my God, this is, this is the high life. This is wonderful.
Jagger was saying, actually, Keith Richards is the sound of the Stones. Mick Taylor wasn't really a Stone at all. But
Mick and Keith not really working together as songwriters.
He made this terrible mistake leaving the band.
I don't want to do this anymore.
On some level, he probably saved his own life, and he had to go. He could not stay there.
It really wasn't a big deal to me, leaving the Stones.
Few guitarists have left a mark on the Rolling Stones' sound as profoundly as Mick Taylor.
I think the changes in musical direction of the Stones were definitely influenced by Mick Taylor's playing as he joined them.
That's the period they created their greatest music, their most enduring music.
Mick could play anything. He was so soulful.
Joining the band in 1969 after the departure of founding member Brian Jones.
Brian would have to go. I mean, not simply because of his own musicianship, which was kind of falling off, or his relationship with the other people, but there was a sort of US tour pending, and Brian wasn't going to be able to go for the simple reason of his drug convictions.
I think this is really the critical thing that explains so much of their trajectory and why they had to get rid of Brian. I mean, there's a whole number of reasons, but I've always believed that paramount amongst them was the fact that the state he was in, I think it probably would have been impossible to go out on the road with him.
This very decadent figure in the whole swinging London scene, and even though Brian had been gradually sort of frozen out by Jagger and Richards just due to being so untogether and out of it, nonetheless, it must have been a daunting thing for young Mick Taylor to fill those shoes.
Mick Jagger called me up around that time because he wanted a replacement for Brian Jones so that they could go on the road. And so I told him that I was going to be changing over my lineup and Mick Taylor would be available. John Mayall called me.
That he'd heard that the Rolling Stones were looking for a guitar player to replace Brian Jones because they were not only finishing an album, but they wanted to go on the road again. They hadn't done anything for 2 or 3 years, and they were about to sign a new recording deal with Atlantic Records, and they needed somebody to replace Brian Jones.
And so I became part of the band.
Taylor brought a fluid, blues-based lead guitar style that elevated the Stones' music into more sophisticated territory.
And Mick, who was younger than the rest of the band, this was incredibly overawing experience, and he must have been terrified.
Even though they'd had a lot of success, they'd had a lot of hit records, they never really had the reputation of being a great live band. They'd never done any big major tours where they'd been able to play for more than about 20 or 25 minutes. So when I joined them, it became a different type of band.
The sound has grown and mutated, so it's a quite different kind of Rolling Stones than we've ever seen before.
In 1969, that was the beginning, really, of when lots of groups started to tour the world and play in big arenas, big sports stadiums with big sound systems, where you could actually hear what they were playing.
So again, it's not coincidental that Mick Taylor's arrival coincides with the onset of the Stones' golden period. And he's also a great live player as well, so he's an important component of that whole notion of them getting back to being a touring band and a stage band again. I think his importance in the Stones can't be understated, really, because he both allows Keith Richards to come into his own, but he also creates this kind of guitar partnership with Keith, which for various reasons hadn't really existed between Keith and Brian Jones.
To me, the real interest in playing guitar is to play guitar with another guy. Two guitars together, if you get it right, it can become like an orchestra. And Mick Taylor's virtuoso.
His tenure was relatively short, just 5 years, but in that time he contributed to some of the band's most iconic albums and live performances.
They still had this hunger to sort of create good music and make good records. So we used to try and make one record every year, and we pretty much did. The first one was Let It Bleed, and then there was a live one, Get Your Yayas Out, and then there was Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Street, Goat's Head Soup. There's about six or seven, major Stones albums that were done between 69 and 75, 76 while I was with them.
And I think Sticky Fingers is probably the greatest sort of single album long player that the Stones ever did. Let It Bleed is always recognised as a masterpiece. Exile on Main Street as a double vinyl album has its own kind of identity. I always think that Sticky Fingers gets slightly overlooked in that. And I think it's, as a piece of work, from Brown Sugar to Moonlight Mile, I think it's pretty flawless.
There's nothing approaching a Duff track on that entire record. Not Ventilator Blues, not any other minor ones. They're all really good. And at least half of them are just complete dynamite.
Mick and Keith not really working together as songwriters. I mean, the song still said Jagger Richards, but they weren't really written like that. I mean, some of the songs I helped write, a few anyway.
Here are the top 10 Rolling Stones songs that showcase Mick Taylor's unforgettable touch.
Tumbling Dice took hours and hours to do, days in fact, and a lot of it was down to how it was mixed. I mean, Mick Jagger commented when they first began to mix the finished product that he thought that the cymbals sounded like dustbin lids. There was a lot of work on it, and in a way it wasn't so much them composing a song as producing a production.
Richards wasn't the only Stone to miss recording schedules.
They begin to record, let's say, Tumbling Dice. There are many nights when Keith spends 15 minutes playing with the rest of the band and then says, well, I've got to go put Marlon to bed, his young son, goes up the stairs to the main floor, gets his son, goes upstairs to the bedrooms, and that's it. They don't see him again.
Bassist Bill Wyman was occasionally MIA too. During the band's chaotic sessions in France for 1972's Exile on Main Street, members would come and go as they pleased, and music got made whenever someone was around and felt like making it.
You think, it sounds like a first take, wow, they nailed that one. And then you find out that actually it was probably the track that gave them the most difficulty on the entire album.
Wyman was absent when Tumbling Dice was recorded, so Taylor played bass, pulling double duty on the album's biggest single.
Over 100 takes and months of work. So it's the work that goes into sounding so effortless is always fascinating. The weird thing about Tumbling Dice is that it sounds so loose and natural and flowing, and you listen to that track.
And obviously, I mean, I think Tumbling Dice is brilliant. You know, I think it's almost as good as Brown Sugar in that kind of ilk. I mean, what is it? It's like rock and soul. You know, it's soul infused rock music.
Brown Sugar, Sticky Fingers, 1971. Taylor played on 2 songs from Let It Bleed, which also included the final tracks recorded by the late Brian Jones.
I think a song like Brown Sugar it's a marriage of this hit writing ability that they developed in the mid-60s with the new sound, the kind of heavier, edgier, darker sound. So they hadn't lost all of that ability to come up with, Keith might come up with the riff and Mick would come up with the melody. And they could craft it into a great 3-minute pop song. And certainly Brown Sugar is a classic example of that.
By Sticky Fingers, he had become fully integrated into the Stones, playing electric, acoustic, and slide guitars. His soft, warm, and lyrical tones balanced and contrasted with Richard's more jagged style.
Brown sugar, how come you taste so good?
Brown Sugar kind of re-established the Stones, and it established the sort of Stones Mac 2, if you like, with Mick Taylor in it.
Brown sugar, just like a young girl should now.
I mean, Brown Sugar is where my love affair with the Rolling Stones began. You know, it was the first single I ever bought, and the incredible punch and sexy raunchiness of the riff. I think it is one of Keith's absolute. I mean, I think it's up there. It's probably one of the best 5 up-tempo Stones songs.
You should have heard it just around midnight.
It is the most brilliant sort of conjunction of Jagger's sort of sexual interests.
Brown sugar, how come you taste so good?
You know, the kind of narcotic background to the Rolling Stones at that time, that sort of fusing of sort of sexuality and sort of narcotic stupor. Whatever your kind of degree of sort of political correctness, you know, I think it's sort of just as a piece of music, it just forces you to kind of go with the flow.
But I don't think that they made such a feature of it as they did on Brown Sugar. Although, I mean, I think that sort of pointed towards the stage shows that they had in the later 70s, where they actually incorporated auxiliary players.
Taylor provided the subtle but driving rhythm for this hit single. Need proof that Taylor was undervalued by the Stones? Look no further than this gem from the band's troubled 1973 album, Goat's Head Soup. Winter was the first song recorded for the LP, and Keith Richards wasn't even around.
Cold, cold winter.
So Taylor played all of the guitars on the song,
And the wind that ain't been blown from the south.
including the wistful slide. It's also likely that he co-wrote the song with Mick Jagger, even though the official credit goes to the usual Jagger-Richards combo.
I mean, he's disillusioned as well about not getting the songwriting credits that he should have done.
Honky Tonk Women!
Honky Tonk Women, single, 1969.
Met a gentle ballroom queen in Memphis.
Honky Tonk Women was a sort of apocryphal period, if you like. It was a sort of period between Brian and Mick.
She tried to take me upstairs for a ride.
I think that at the time that there was an element of ensemble playing on Honky Tonk Women rather than soloing.
She had to heave me right across her shoulder.
You can thank Taylor for Honky Tonk Women.
Just can't seem to drink it off my mind.
The song originally sounded like country honk,
Yeah, I'm sitting in a bar, tipping a jar in Jackson. And on the street, the summer sun it shines.
Honky Tonk Women, I hear the country in the country honk versions, certainly, but no, with the single, what you hear is the influence of Jimmy Miller.
It's the honky tonk women. They give me the honky tonk blues.
the twangy Let It Bleed goof that featured one of Taylor's first appearances on a Stones album.
Give me the honky tonk blues.
Mick Taylor was on the periphery of the Stones, if you like, creatively before the turn of the decade. But nonetheless, his sort of fingerprints are there. You know, he did play on Honky Tonk Women, and he was around for the Let It Bleed sessions, or at least the sessions in Los Angeles towards the end of the year.
I later divorced in New York City.
Taylor added more rock muscle to the track, which became the band's fifth #1 hit. We love the cowbell, but it wouldn't even be there if Taylor hadn't scruffed up the song. Rocks Off, Exile on Main Street, 1972. The recording of the Stones' classic Exile on Main Street album was mired in murky production, rampant drug use, and absent members.
Drugs in the early 70s are so intertwined, and Keith sinks deeper and deeper into addiction. Jagger is a very different animal when it comes to all this, because Jagger likes to be in control, and the thing about drugs is that you're out of control. Keith liked being out of control, and that can also be very creative.
I hear you talking when I'm on the street.
And of course, the drugs do start affecting the music. I mean, they contribute to that dark, seamy quality that the sound has.
The LP's opening cut fires like a warning, with all 5 Stones, plus a few session men, splattering intentions and expectations in all directions.
The sunshine boys, the daylight's
Taylor's short, sweet solo leads the song to its fade. Can't You Hear Me Knocking? Sticky Fingers, 1971.
Yeah, you got satin shoes.
This track is a masterclass in spontaneity and groove.
Can you hear me knocking on the window?
After the main song ends, Taylor takes over with an improvisational jam that shifts into Latin jazz territory. His solo builds gradually into a soulful, expressive peak that makes the track unforgettable.
Mick was very much a solo player. Incredible melodic sensitivity about his playing.
Moonlight Mile, the haunting and atmospheric closing track of the Rolling Stones' 1971 album, Sticky Fingers, stands out as one of the band's most introspective and sonically rich compositions.
And I think Sticky Fingers is probably the greatest sort of single album long player that the Stones ever did. It's as a piece of work, you know, from Brown Sugar to Moonlight Mile, I think it's pretty flawless.
While much of the credit often goes to Mick Jagger, who wrote the lyrics and helped shape the mood of the song, guitarist Mick Taylor played a crucial and often underappreciated role in bringing Moonlight Mile to life.
Mick Taylor's influence is clear on something like Moonlit Mile.
Unlike the gritty blues rock swagger that defined much of Sticky Fingers, Moonlight Mile is delicate, reflective, and emotionally vulnerable.
You hear it on Moonlight Mile, and this is Mick Taylor making a major contribution to the band.
It tells the story of isolation and the weariness of life on the road, wrapped in a dreamy, late-night soundscape.
It's part of my emotional knowledge of what the internal reality of people in the 60s was like.
The song is notable for its layered instrumentation, acoustic guitar, string arrangements, piano, and subtle lead work all come together to create a lush, cinematic feel. Keith Richards was notably absent during much of the creation of the track, and that absence opened up space for other members, most significantly Mick Taylor, to step into the spotlight.
Moonlight Mile is one of the absolute highlights. I mean, ironic that, you know, Keith Richards, you know, the heart and soul and lungs of the Rolling Stones is not on it. To this day, I don't even know how much involvement Keith had in the writing of it, and, you know, we know he wasn't there. We still know that it is a masterpiece. It's a fantastic, you know, climax to the record. It's a brilliant way for the record to go out.
Taylor's involvement began when Jagger asked him to help flesh out the arrangement. Though Taylor is not credited as a co-writer, a common frustration for him during his time with the band, his guitar work and input into the song's structure were essential to his final form.
I mean, he's disillusioned as well about not getting the songwriting credits that he should have done.
Mick Mick Taylor's playing on Moonlight Mile is understated but deeply expressive. He plays the acoustic guitar parts that serve as the song's backbone, delicately picking patterns that lend the song a sense of movement and melancholia. His phrasing is elegant and fluid, showing his classical and jazz influences more than his blues roots.
Mick Taylor was as gifted a guitar player as had ever come out of England. I mean, he had been in the Blues Breakers. Mick could play anything. He was so soulful.
While there is no blazing solo, Taylor's guitar sings in a way that amplifies the song's emotional depth. His acoustic playing creates a hypnotic groove over which Jagger's vocals drift, giving the track its meditative, almost trance-like atmosphere. It's a testament to Taylor's musical maturity that he knew when to keep things simple, letting space and tone carry the emotional weight.
It's a lead guitar virtuoso piece rather than a two guitars weaving, which has always been the Stones motif.
Moonlight Mile offers a rare glimpse into what the Rolling Stones might have sounded like if Taylor had been given more collaborative space within the band. His musical sensibilities meshed beautifully with Jagger's lyrical introspection, resulting in a song that feels more personal and artistically ambitious than much of the Stones' typical output at the time.
Moonlight Mile, what a killer. Absolutely great song. Now there's a song about desolation, drugs, waking up on Sunday morning and all of that stuff, you know. That's a great song about it. Absolutely great song.
Well, for me, at any rate, you know, encapsulates the sort of, you know, that feeling of sort of cocaine come down, you know, of just sort of almost wasted elegance, if you like, that sort of wasted beauty, you know. One would rather kind of hear it in the form of that song than experience it and go through it.
I've never come down from that kind of high in my life, but I say that their demonic songs don't teach me anything about that part of life, and their sadomasochistic songs don't teach me anything about that part of life. Moonlight Mile, that's a song that was a learning experience for me.
Moonlight Mile is one of the most atypical songs in the Rolling Stones catalog, and Mick Taylor's contribution is a major reason why. It showcases his ability to enhance a song not with flash or firepower, but with atmosphere, emotion, and taste.
The song is straightforward enough, and then you've got this great long sort of Santana-like lead guitar piece tacked on the end, which to me isn't really Stones at all. I don't think Keith's playing on it.
Taylor himself has spoken about Moonlight Mile as one of his favorite tracks from his time with the band, though he also noted his disappointment in not being recognized for his compositional input.
A rock revolution, and it's happening at the Rolling Stones. Get down!
There's a hidden gem tucked deep into exile on Main Street, the Stones' legendary 1972 double album.
I gave it an A+. Once I got it, I loved it.
And I bought Exile on the day it came out, and I just thought it was fantastic.
For those who are under the age of 30, this is hands down the greatest Rolling Stones album of all time.
A track that never became a radio hit, but among die-hard fans and musicians, it's a cult classic. It's raw, gritty, and soaked in the kind of blues that cuts to the bone. We're talking about Ventilator Blues, and the unsung hero behind its haunting groove. That would be none other than Mick Taylor.
That whole period was incredibly creative for all of us.
Ventilator Blues was one of the few Stone songs written at the infamous Villa Nelcote in the south of France, where the band recorded most of Exile and in total chaos.
It was absolutely chaotic.
It was a collection of people who had no last name. You didn't know what it was they did for a living, most of which was illegal, or most of them did not need to work for a living.
24-hour, house party, if you like. I mean, there were numerous people and hangers-on and dealers and groupies.
The house was hot, humid, and filled with characters from the underworld. The basement was dark and sweaty.
Very oppressive atmosphere. Very humid at the time, and even when the autumn descended, it was like, a wet raincoat had been spread across there. And it says a lot for Keith that he was actually able to sort of hold it together in that atmosphere.
Instruments warped in the heat, and yet out of that madness came one of the band's dirtiest grooves. And guess who sparked it? Mick Taylor.
What it was like is a song Ventilator Blues, which I think is about the sort of air conditioning failing during a session.
It was Taylor who came up with the distinctive snaky guitar riff that anchors Ventilator Blues. It's grimy, it's tense. It feels like it's crawling across a sticky floor in a smoke-filled room.
This was a whole different approach to music and recording from what I'd been used to, Usually you know the name of the song you're playing.
I'm trying to make the songs up. There's a riff, there's a groove, and you're trying to make up the words, you're trying to make up a melody. And so the writing process was very, very loose.
It was about as unrehearsed as a hiccup, It just was. It wasn't exactly spontaneous combustion.
Place to call to Henley.
Give George Harrison my best wishes.
Yes.
Not to mention his old lady.
But Taylor didn't stop at just writing the riff. He locked in with Charlie Watts and Bill Wyman to create one of the Stones' heaviest and most unusual rhythms.
Should be a chord progression.
The one that's great on that is Ventilator Blues.
We started off just jamming. Really casual, untogether.
Charlie's drumming here is more complex than usual, syncopated and off-kilter. Wyman follows close behind.
It always ended up great, That was the great thing about it.
We always rehearse it, and it's a great riff, but we never do it as good as that. If something is not right, either Keith will play a bit different, which is not the same, or I'll get it wrong. And that's because Bobby said, why don't you do this? And I said, I can't play that. Said, yeah, it's this. I stood next to me, clapping. I just followed his tone.
Where I ever had the balls to try to tell Charlie Watts where 2 and 4 words is beyond me. I've often thought to myself, son, what were you smoking or what were you drinking? And God bless his heart and patience, he listened to me. There you go, you hear it right here. I taught Charlie Watts how to play.
And Taylor, he's the glue. His guitar slides around the beat, pushing and pulling, giving the whole track this tense, unstable feel, like it might fall apart at any moment, but it never does. It just keeps grinding forward. If the Stones were ever close to sounding like a Delta blues band from the underworld, this was it. The riff wasn't flashy, it was perfectly filthy, built for the song's claustrophobic mood. Keith Richards even admitted later that the riff was totally Mick's, and that's saying something coming from the riff king himself.
Once we got into a studio and picked up our guitars, we were in our own world.
For all his brilliant playing with the Stones, Mick Taylor rarely got official songwriting credit. But on Ventilator Blues, he did. The song is credited to Jagger Richards Taylor, a rare honor and one that reflects just how central he was to the song's creation.
It's a bit of a travesty that Ventilator Blues is the only track that Mick Taylor ever gets a co-writing credit on, because you can hear him in that track loud and clear, but you can hear him in a lot of other tracks that he wasn't given credit for.
It's hard to say whether Mick Taylor, was demanding more accreditation than he'd hitherto received. He did get credit on Ventilator Blues, but nothing else. And who knows? Mick himself was sliding into the kind of narcotic chaos that enveloped the Rolling Stones at this point. He was a classic victim of the Stones' sort of demonic seduction, and ultimately could not handle being a part of that group.
And yet, despite its power, Ventilator Blues was never played live by the Stones after the Exile sessions. Keith once joked that they could never get the groove quite right again, which might speak volumes about how irreplaceable Taylor's touch was.
They didn't do 20 songs from Exile. They did like 4. They did All Down the Line. They did Rocks Off. But in concert, then, those were never the best songs.
Ventilator Blues might not be the Stones' most famous track, but it's one of their most vicious, and it stands as a testament to Mick Taylor's darker, deeper contribution to the band's golden era. He wasn't just a brilliant soloist, he was a groove player, a bluesman, a tone sculptor, and on Ventilator Blues, he helped craft a song that sounds like sweat dripping down concrete walls. Sometimes revolution doesn't scream. Sometimes it just groans through the vents. Featured on the 1974 album, It's Only Rock and Roll, a hauntingly beautiful track that features perhaps Taylor's finest studio solo with the Stones.
My role in the Rolling Stones was to play guitar. I mean, I think after 5.5 years, I really had enough.
The track not only captures Taylor's technical and emotional peak with the band, but also serves as a poignant farewell note. He would leave the group just months later.
I was sitting on this sofa in the middle. Mick Jagger was here and Mick Taylor was here. I'll never forget it. We were all having a chat and a drink. And then at one point, Taylor leans over to Jagger and says, "I'm leaving the band. I'm leaving right now."
Yeah, star-crossed and pleasure, stream flows on by.
Mick said, "I think he was serious." And I said, "I think he was too."
Waits by no one, and it won't.
I can't give you one overriding reason for leaving.
Waits by no one, and it won't.
Unlike the Stones' usual swaggering blues rock, Time Waits for No One is built around a wistful, introspective mood.
Time Waits for No Man is one of Mick Taylor's finest contributions.
The sonic space this creates is not just room for a guitar solo, it demands one. But not just any solo, it needed to say something, and that's exactly what Mick Taylor delivered.
And it's ironic in a way that it comes at the point where he's pretty disillusioned and is already thinking about getting out.
It's the perfect farewell song, as it was one of his last major contributions before leaving the band.
Yeah, I can't really say it was totally down to being frustrated artistically. I didn't feel that I could grow anymore.
Spanning almost 3 full minutes, Taylor's solo begins gently and builds to a lyrical, emotionally resonant climax. It's often compared to Carlos Santana's phrasing, an apt reference, especially given Taylor's recent trip to Brazil before the session, which he said influenced his feel and rhythmic ideas.
He does this wonderful Carlos Santana style guitar solo on Time Waits for No One.
Though Taylor hadn't officially left the band yet, the solo plays like a final statement. It's as if he's pouring every unspoken frustration, longing and farewell into those few minutes.
He's got drug problems of his own as well at this stage. And it's all a bit of a messy ending for Mick. He just felt he had to get out.
Well, would you leave the Rolling Stones?
I don't know. Maybe I thought that I would be able to protect my family from not Keith's orbit, but drugs. Because I slowly became addicted to heroin. There comes a point where you have to choose between one or the other, or you die. And I've survived.
You know, it's sad that people think he made this terrible mistake leaving the band. On some level, he probably saved his own life, and he had to go. He could not stay there.
A lot of people think I'm crazy for leaving. People are constantly saying to me, "Why didn't you just stay where you were? You could have been a millionaire by now."
Guitar solos in rock often aim for speed or power. Taylor goes for feeling and wins.
There are clearly difficulties between him and Keith at this stage with, infamous stories of Keith wiping some of his contributions and replacing them with his own.
Many Rolling Stones fans rank it among the best solos ever recorded by the band. Critics often cite it as evidence of Taylor's underappreciated role in the Stones' 1970s golden era.
And this is why I keep saying that Mick Taylor has never really been given his full due in subsequent.
He's only credited with one song on Exile, Ventilator Blues, and this was the issue that eventually drove him out. He wrote a lot more than they gave him credit for. You know, this is always the bone of contention in rock and roll. The real money is in the songwriting royalties. Jagger Richards were not about to have that many other titles on their albums, and Mick wanted more credit and didn't get it.
To me, they peaked then, and I don't really think that they've done as many good albums or written as many good songs as they did, not only while I was with them, but prior to the period I joined them.
So he's almost become a semi-detached member by this stage. Not quite to the extent Brian Jones was at the end of his tenure in the band, but it's in retrospect you can see that he was on the way out, and yet they still needed him, you know, and he's still making these great contributions that you can hear on the record.
Full version, as originally released on It's Only Rock and Roll, remains the definitive take and a reminder of what the band lost when Taylor left.
So his contributions, I think, were immense in that way, and we almost didn't realise until he'd gone, you know, what he weaved into the fabric of the Stones.
You know, it's a love-hate relationship with me. Always will be.
When Mick Taylor announced his departure, I mean, Jagger said he was very, very disappointed by it. I think it really shocked the band.
Mick Taylor leaving was the curveball, because that was a really good band, and it had this balance between Keith and Mick Taylor.
I think Jagger rued Taylor's departure more than Keith did, because he appreciated the musical sophistication, that Mick Taylor brought to the Rolling Stones, and that's obvious from the fact that, you know, the two of them worked quite closely together on certain kind of key tracks, you know, whether it is Moonlight Mile or Next Time We Say Goodbye.
Mick Taylor's guitar solo on Time Waits for No One is more than just a standout moment. It's a masterclass in expressive melodic soloing. It captures a fleeting moment of clarity and depth in the Stones' catalog, a place where time did seem to pause just long enough for one guitarist to say everything he needed to say. And then, just like the song warns, time moved on. Sway, Sticky Fingers, 1971. Taylor was credited with co-writing only one song during his 5 years with the Stones, Ventilator Blues from Exile on Main Street.
He did get credit on Ventilator Blues, but nothing else.
But he was most likely responsible for sizable chunks of other songs.
You can hear him in a lot of other tracks that he wasn't given credit for.
It's hard to say whether Mick Taylor, was demanding more accreditation than he'd hitherto received,
This great cut from Sticky Fingers is his best. He not only reportedly wrote the song with Jagger during another one of Richard's absences, but he also played the bluesy slide in the middle of the song. And the terrific lead at the end. Richards may have been responsible for the Stones' greatest riffs, but Taylor was behind their best ever solo.
Mick was very much a solo player, incredible melodic sensitivity about his playing.
Mick Taylor brought a unique sensitivity and technical brilliance to the Rolling Stones that expanded their sonic palette. His ability to blend blues, jazz, and rock influences into expressive, often improvised solos helped shape the band's most critically acclaimed period.
Within a few weeks, Jagger was saying, actually, Keith Richards is the sound of the Stones. Mick Taylor wasn't really a Stone at all. But, and in a way, at the time, we undervalued him, I think. But listening back, he contributed so much, and he saw the Stones through that period with his very elegant, virtuoso playing, which I think was crucial at that time when everyone was looking towards, progressive rock and rock being almost on a classical status.
While his time with the Stones was brief, the legacy he left behind is enduring. And essential to understanding their evolution as a band.
They changed from this band that is documenting pop culture, swinging London, into something that's much more sort of, much more like rock music as we know it today.
We almost didn't realise until he'd gone. Mick Taylor contributed so much, from the guitar meshing from Honky Tonk Women, Sticky Fingers, I think he vaguely co-wrote Sway, he's all over Exile, Ventilator Blues, he got a co-credit.
The greatest Rolling Stones lineup was the one between 1969 and 74 with Mick Taylor.
As is well known, now, that period was probably one of their most productive and creative. We made some great albums. It really wasn't a big deal to me, leaving the Stones.